Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer at OccupyFantasy.com, here with some NFL DFS picks and tips for the running back position for Week 8 contests. As you know by now, we're dropping these position previews every single week throughout the rest of the regular season, so if you like that, please subscribe to the channel below. You'll get notified when we have new content for you to check out. If you like this video, we'd really appreciate it if you'd give us a thumbs up on the video. Let us know you want to see more content like this throughout the rest of the NFL season, and we'd be happy to know that for sure. If you have any questions about running backs on this slate, please leave one in the comment section below. It's the easiest place for us to get back to you. You can also consider joining our Discord, which is linked above the description of every single video as an option for you to consider. You get in there and you can talk to Occupy staff and other members about every single sport, every slate that's going on. We'd be happy to have you in there and talk to you about some different things all the time. Here in Week 8, not a ton of bye week problems, as you know. Week 7 is now behind us. Only the Ravens and the Raiders on bye, and not really any running backs on those teams that we're interested in playing in DFS right now, heavily anyway. So that certainly isn't a factor here on the slate. I think there's one running back that is going to be extremely popular on both FanDuel and DraftKings that maybe isn't like the most impressive player or a name that you hear talked about all the time, but it's San Francisco 49ers starting running back, Elijah Mitchell. Eli Mitchell here is definitely the guy. Missed a couple of games due to injury, but came right back in Week 7. He had 18 carries out of a total 23 carries for the 49ers as a team against the Colts on Sunday Night Football in Week 7. So at a pretty affordable price, $5,400 here on DraftKings and $5,800, which is an even better price relative to the salary cap there on FanDuel. Eli Mitchell looking like a great play this week against a below average run defense. You know, San Francisco with above average run blocking. San Francisco kind of a run first offense that sort of will prefer to use Mitchell anyway here in this matchup against the Bears, even before, you know, most likely outcome with them getting ahead. So we think Mitchell's probably going to be a pretty popular play in all lineup types this week. Certainly low risk contests, high risk contests, going to help you fit in the other things that you want in your lineups this week. Got to like what Eli Mitchell allows you to do based off of the pricing and his role this week. I do think that, once again, we have a ton of games this week with double-digit spreads. 3 giant favorites on this slate, one of which is the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Mixon here facing the Jets, who are pretty bad run defense. They're in the bottom third of the league in terms of defending the run. The Bengals have a pretty above average run blocking line. They are best team in the AFC right now, if that means anything to you. So they'll definitely be looking to run the football here. We saw the success the Patriots had against the Bengals last week with Damien Harris, Brandon Bolden in the running game. Looks like Joe Mixon will have an opportunity here in Week 8 to have a nice game for himself after just an 11.9 point performance in Week 7 against the Ravens. They kind of got ahead through the air against the Ravens last week. Look for maybe that to change a little bit here, and for the Bengals to try and use Mixon a little bit more heavily against the Jets in this game. They're favored by 10.5 points. Mixon has one of the highest touch expectations in our model this week, which actually just got posted on OccupyFantasy.com here on Wednesday. Definitely worth considering that he's going to have third most touches out of all running backs on this slate, according to our model. After Joe Mixon, another player you'll probably see a lot of people go back to after last week's strong performance, finally, DAndre Swift with the Detroit Lions, with this really dynamic role where he's basically getting about half of the team's carries, virtually leads the team in targets. He's just one target behind tight end TJ Hawkinson. So Swift going to be a pretty popular play once again against the Eagles. A little bit of an easier matchup for Swift against Eagles defense than it was last week against Rams defense. I feel like he'll be used pretty heavily because he's used heavily every single week. DAndre Swift, another mid-range running back everyone's going to probably flock to this week. 7,100 here on DraftKings, 7,900 over on FanDuel. Actually leads our model in projected... No, excuse me. He's pretty highly ranked in our model in terms of projected weighted opportunities. He's not the leader, because the leader is actually the next player I wanted to talk to you about. It's Alvin Kamara. Now, the challenge here with Kamara is we see the rushing volume has been pretty high this year, 20 plus carries in 3 out of the last 4 weeks, but he's now facing a Buccaneers defense. It's only allowing 67 rushing yards per game to their opponents. A team that offenses have kind of chosen to go away from the run against and pass the football more. Thankfully for the Saints, Kamara has also been a pretty heavily targeted player from Jameis Winston. You just saw 11 targets against the Saints on Monday Night Football, 8 targets the week before that. And throughout this game against the Giants is somewhat of an outlier. Kamara is definitely more involved in the passing game now and probably will continue to be against the Buccaneers here in Week 8 out of necessity. This is not a team that they're going to be able to run the football between the tackles right up the gut against. They're going to have to get creative, find ways to get the ball in Kamara's hands. That's going to be in the passing game largely. So he'll be an interesting tournament option, I think, as a result. I don't think Derrick Henry is someone that's going to be as popular this week as he has been in previous weeks. The biggest reason is he's expensive. There's a lot of value on this slate. Second biggest reason is the Colts are actually the best run defense in the league. Not that that matters for King Henry. But Derrick Henry definitely more of a luxury item play once again here in Week 8. And, how does he fail? Despite seeing, almost 30 touches every single week, over 30 touches in most weeks. Derrick Henry, at just 16 points last week, no, rushing or receiving touchdown, somehow a passing touchdown, only getting you 16, 17 points. That's how Derrick Henry kind of fails based off of his pricing. He needs to give you a great game for him to be worth the investment in your lineups this week. It's certainly not a good spot from a low-risk perspective, but with this game having a high total, over 50 points, in betting markets, expected to be one of the more high-scoring games on the Sunday main slate, Derrick Henry going to be someone I think everybody's considering for tournament lineups this week, once again. If Nick Chubb is healthy and ready to go, he's probably going to slide right back in as the lead dog for the Browns. We saw what Dearness Johnson did against the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football. Basically dominated all the opportunities. Demetric Felton, who's been playing more wide receiver anyway, didn't really do much. John Kelly, who was signed off practice squad, only had a couple of touches out of the backfield. I think that the role Dearness had will go straight to Nick Chubb without Kareem Hunt in the picture. He's their guy. They paid him because they believe in him. And it's a good matchup here against the Steelers for him as well. Browns are slight home favorites here. They may actually have Baker Mayfield back under center, which could be even more reason for them to continue to be run heavy because they want to protect his shoulder. So good matchup for Nick Chubb. Best way to think about Nick Chubb in this matchup is that he's effectively Derrick Henry at a significant price discount. If you were able to pay $6,800 for Derrick Henry and the role that he has in his offense, then you should be willing to pay that for Nick Chubb here in this matchup against Pittsburgh Steelers. But it is dependent on the injury report. If he gives us a clean week, we're going to be interested in Nick Chubb here in DFS in Week 8. The other side of this game, Najee Harris, has like 80% of the rushing opportunities for the Steelers as a team. He's basically the only running back who's really touching the ball for them. The other rushes, are kind of trick plays with wide receivers or somehow Roethlisberger kneel downs or whatever, right? And then obviously getting more involved in the passing game here with a healthy 5+ targets in each of the last 5 weeks of play for the Steelers. Should be a little more involved as well without Juju Smith-Schuster available anymore. The thing about Najee that is kind of interesting is here on DraftKings, he's just 7,500. So he's a decent high-risk play. Over on FanDuel, he's 9,000. We've got someone like Kamara at 8,400 over on FanDuel. Kamara is probably a much better play on FanDuel from a tournament perspective than a lot of these other guys, just based off of the pricing dynamic. I think I'd prefer Najee just on DraftKings this week because of the way that sort of all shakes out. We'll give you more information on that in the Daily Plug when we get there. These are the main guys I'm looking at here early in Week 8. Slate is still sort of taking shape for us. We'll have our final thoughts by Friday afternoon in the Daily Plug that gets posted on OccupyFantasy.com. A couple of quick hitters on guys that are in interesting situations. Obviously, you had the big game against the Jets last week. The thing about Damien Harris's matchup on the road here against the Chargers is the Chargers are actually allowing the most rushing yards per game to opponents this year so far, over 163 rushing yards per game, by far the most in the league. So Damien Harris is probably the guy that's going to run the football the most for the Patriots. Kind of an affordable salary, an interesting high-risk option. Once again, as big favorites, probably going to see people click on Darrell Henderson against the Houston Texans. They're right up there in terms of rushing yards allowed per game to opposing offenses. They're obviously behind the Chargers, but they're one of the worst in the league. And then Leonard Fournette still has a pretty high weighted opportunity role for the Buccaneers in this backfield. He's basically the main guy getting all the carries and getting some of the targets and getting the most red zone looks in the Bucs offense at the running back position. There are some injuries with the Eagles. It does not sound like Miles Sanders is going to play this week, which means Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott are interesting options. They also have Jordan Howard, who's on their practice squad. He may end up playing a role in this game, so keep an eye on that. that would certainly be interesting this week, depending on who is the lead back here. This might be something you see people do from a value back perspective. Someone here in the Eagles backfield against the Lions might end up being popular by the weekend. And then I think the last player that I have my eye on is Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, just because, again, this is a high total game against the Titans. The Colts are slight favorites. This could be a good spot to deploy Taylor as a result. That is, though, going to do it for this video. Happy to talk about running backs. Happy to talk about NFL DFS every single week with you all. Appreciate you watching, as always. Keep an eye out for that daily plug, which will get posted at Occupy Fantasy on Friday afternoon. That's where we'll have our top high-risk and low-risk plays for you at each position. We'll give you some ideas on contests to play based on the amount of dollars you have to deploy. And the most important part of the plug, we will give you the best way to utilize our favorite players in the slate for the type of contest that you're playing. So whether it's low-risk contests or high-risk contests, we'll give you some tips on how to structure your lineups appropriately. Pretty important stuff, if you ask me. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel below. That's how you get notified when we have new content for you. That's the most important thing you could do. If you like this video, we would appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up on it. Let us know that you want to see us continue to make more of this stuff for you. Certainly appreciate it if you do so. Lots of things going on in the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel this year. Appreciate you being here. Once again, I am Chris for Occupy. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.